Section 1. The Perfect Life. The Perfect Lie. Caden James Roy Crow. Caden Crow had it all. He was the star quarterback, the most popular jock at Crestville High School. Everyone knew his name. Everyone cheered when he scored the winning touchdown. Life felt perfect. He walked through the crowded hallways like he owned them, a king in his own little kingdom. His best friend, a beautiful cheerleader whose name everyone chanted at games, Ruby Crimson Sparks, was always by his side. They had grown up together, sharing secrets and dreams since they were little kids, building toys in a toy chest they played with together. She was the one person he thought he could trust with anything, the sweet, smiling girl who had been his shadow for as long as he could remember. She was his protector when he was mistreated and abandoned by his father and mother, the parents he couldn't even remember as people in his life. For his birthday, she gave him a gift. It was a bizarre device. She said, "It will work when you need it, my most beloved." But then the nightmares started. They were always the same, like he saw something horrible was happening without his knowledge. He would be small, so small, like the size of a Lego minifigure in a giant's house, and she would be there, his childhood friend, Ruby Crimson Sparks, a girl beyond beauty. She was his entire world. He always fantasized about his beloved cheerleader being a giantess, calling him her beloved, saying she would protect him, but that was a lie. She was the monster behind everything he suffered, a demonic entity pretending to be his childhood friend, his dream girl. But he never understood why he had this fantasy. It never made sense, but he desired it and wrote it off as something he developed as a teenager. But it was more horrifying, sick and twisted than he could ever fathom. But she was never the girl he knew. It was always a mask. She was a Lovecraftian entity, her form towering in the sky, her smile wicked, staring at him while he slept. She looked human, but acted wrong. There was something utterly alien about her behavior, something intelligent and unknowable. Her two friends, Indigo and Rachel, Caden's rivals, were giantesses as well, taking delight in tormenting him over and over. It was so bad that his mind fractured and blacked out. Her blue eyes, once so kind and familiar, were now huge, dark pools that watched his every move with predatory desire, wanting to play with him like he was mere entertainment for her and her grotesque desires, a toy for something that looks human but is completely inhuman. She never frowned. She just giggled, and it was wrong. Her smile was like a clown's smile, unsettling and beyond horrific, like everything was just a joke to her. She never cried, never got angry, never was afraid. It was deeply unsettling. He would run, his legs pumping as hard as they could, but he could never escape her grasp because she knew him better than he knew himself. He existed for her, and she would revel in that fact. He felt like he was a bug trapped under a magnifying glass, about to be burned. The dreams felt so real. He would wake up in a cold sweat, his heart pounding against his ribs like a trapped bird. He could barely remember the dreams, and just remembering the dreams gave him psychological damage. During the day, he tried to shake it off. He'd see her in the hall, smiling that perfect sunny smile, and he'd tell himself it was just a stupid dream. But the feeling of being watched lingered. It followed him from class to class, a creeping dread that coiled in his stomach. He started noticing things. A flicker in her blue eyes that seemed too old, too knowing, something inhuman. A possessive way she held his arm, how she never stopped smiling, how she kept calling him beloved, acted innocent, was possessive, disturbing. It felt performative, like she didn't love him for himself as a person, but what she could make him do, like he was nothing but a plaything, a toy. But he knew she had to be real. She was all he had. Was he going crazy? Or was something terribly, terribly wrong? One night, the nightmare changed. It was more vivid than ever before. He knew he was dreaming, a lucid dream. He found himself standing in the empty halls of Crestville High. The silence was heavy, broken only by the drip, drip, drip of a leaky faucet somewhere down the hall. A faint sound reached his ears. Giggling. A high-pitched, chilling giggle that echoed off the lockers. It was her laugh, but twisted, warped into something monstrous. Beautiful, cute, but horrifying. Then came the screams. Faint at first, then louder. They were the sounds of pure terror, and they were coming from the front of the school. Section 2. The Hidden Evil of Crestville High. Caden ran faster and faster. The giggling grew louder, maddening and psychopathic, with screaming and moans, a sound that made his skin crawl. The screams were horrifying, disgusting in sound. He covered his ears, the lights flashing on and off. In the front of the school area, a monitor screen flickered, casting a sickly, flashing light across the room. On the screen were two men he respected more than anyone, Mr. Harris, his history teacher, and Coach Miller, his football coach. They were his father figures, the men who had guided him, who had taught him about honor and hard work. But their faces were in pure terror as giant versions of Indigo and Rachel killed them on a loop in a grotesque fashion. And then Caden saw her. The cheerleader stepped on them with her red high-heeled boot, her sweet smile now a demonic, wicked grin. She was getting off on destroying them, the violent murder of their demise on a sickening loop. Her laughter, that sick, twisted sound, filled the room. It was then that Caden understood. She wasn't his friend. She wasn't even human. She was a lie wearing a human mask, a creature of pure evil that had been playing a part his entire life, treating him as a toy. The realization hit him like a physical blow, knocking the air from his lungs. It made him want to break down, but he had to be strong. He stumbled back out into the hallway, his mind reeling. The world he knew was shattering around him. He ran. He had to get out. He burst through the double doors of the school and into the night. But the horror wasn't over. It was just beginning. Standing on the football field, silhouetted against the moon, were two more giant figures, Indigo and Rachel, his rivals, and the cheerleader's two friends. They loomed over the school, their shadows stretching like dark silhouettes of something evil, something Lovecraftian. Indigo Lee was a girl with long black hair, a light blue formal shirt, and a gray dress. Rachel had brown pigtails, pink eyes, fangs, and a white gothic dress. They were terrifying monsters, made to break you, then make you thank them as they do it. They were beautiful, terrifying, giant Lovecraftian creatures, just like in his nightmares. He heard they called themselves the Devil's Hands because their power was something utterly demonic. He could feel it now in Rachel, Indigo, and especially the cheerleader. Indigo the experiment and Rachel the bite monster had embraced the dark gift of becoming a giantess, a concept created and given to humanity by the cheerleader as a dark gift. Their laughter echoed, a chorus of cruelty like MP3 files, something robotic. Yet they looked human, just with bizarre, alien-like behavior. Did you really think she ever loved you, Caden? Indigo's voice boomed like an MP3 file, shaking the very ground he stood on. You were nothing to her, Rachel added, her face a mask of contempt with a deranged smile, her fangs showing. You're just a little toy to keep her entertained, jock boy, she snickers, her pink eyes glowing with desire to bite into him. They took a step toward him, their giant feet crushing the bleachers like they were made of matchsticks. They were going to destroy him, simply for the cheerleader's amusement. Panic seized Caden. He fumbled in his pocket, his hand closing around a small, strange device he remembered having, the gift from the cheerleader. Desperate, he pressed the only button on it. The world lurched violently. Section 3. What man suffers the most? Everything flipped. The ground became the sky, and the sky became the ground. Caden fell upward, landing with a thud on a ceiling that was now a floor. The giantesses were gone, or were they? He was in a strange, disorienting place, the school of Crestville High, but he saw something that he never knew was there. A corridor stretched before him, lined with 3 doors. Each door had an acronym of a creepy word carved into it. SUFFER, Sanctioned Utility Facilities for Emotional Reprocessing. They were called suffer rooms. His heart hammered against his ribs, but he knew he had to go on. He had to understand what was happening. He pushed open the first door and stepped inside a room where the walls were giant television screens. The screens played a twisted cartoon on a loop. It was about a young boy named Bradley Cricket. Bradley Cricket was constantly tormented by giant doll women with button eyes and stitched smiles. He knew something was wrong with them, something terrible, but nobody acknowledged it. The lies story couldn't be questioned. People defended their actions, not realizing these girls were turned into giant doll-like creatures that were more powerful than God, made into toys for a malevolent being. It got even worse and more absurd. His own father sold him out. He worshipped these giant dolls, even though it made no sense. It's what the story required. The lie had to be protected. The giantess dolls would pick Bradley up, play with him, torment him, giggle and smile constantly, then try to mercilessly pull him apart. As he tried to get away, crying for his father walked away. They treated him like a plaything, a source of amusement for their cruel games, until he got broken. It was horrifying because they used to be human before, but the power they were given was unrestrained. The malicious lies from the cheerleader were told to make them into her perfect dolls, without empathy, and ruled by the desire for power, but were toys dancing for a giggling demon in a cheerleader uniform. The cartoon was bright and colorful, but the theme was pure torture. Caden watched, horrified, realizing the cartoon was a metaphor for his own life. Sold out by his own father for a fantasy so beautiful, he sacrificed his own son, his own flesh and blood, just to be noticed by perverse, uncaring, beautiful Lovecraftian gods that looked like giant human women. He was Bradley Cricket, and the giant women, the monster Dala, were his arch-enemies, villains from his worst fears made flesh, who wanted to toy with and torment him. He backed out of the room, his stomach churning, and opened the second door. This room was filled with memories, but they weren't his. They were Rachel's. He saw flashes of her pain, moments of fear and suffering, her hatred for Caden, her relationship with her boyfriend, Herdic Hannibal. But then the images shifted, revealing a horrifying truth. Caden's life was never real. His fantasy of giant women, it wasn't even his. Rachel's anger and need to bite were never hers. Indigo's voices in her head were all written down by the cheerleader, a psychopathic, perverse anti-god of lies, who wasn't the devil, wasn't God. She was the lie itself, in its purest form, controlling and destroying humanity for fun, like humanity was her toy. Giant women had been ruling the world for centuries, hiding in plain sight, and Caden's biological father worshipped them, and his own mother was a monster Dala herself, the tormentor, a judge who punishes the ones who question the cheerleader's narrative and lies. The giantesses always were Lovecraftian beings who were birthed from Eve's desire to become God. The cheerleader manipulated humanity, history, feeding on their emotions, their trust, and their lies. The history books were wrong and changed to oblivion. Every lie became a greater story. Every story became history. Everything he had ever learned was a carefully constructed, beautiful lie to keep humanity blind and compliant. In exchange, they would get everything they've ever wanted. The giantess was both the answer to humanity's prayers, but at the cost of everything that made them human, and everything they ever loved. The third room was the worst. It was a denial room. The room was filled with blank white mannequins, all posed in positions of blissful ignorance, their featureless faces turned away from a single speaker in the center of the room. A giant kiss mark on the ceiling was dripping blood. A chilling, disturbing audio tape was playing about the Peterson denial. It was the creepiest thing he ever heard. Where Sherman from Mr. Peabody and Sherman was in denial, fearing that Penny reverted back to her cruel self before they met, and that their friendship was based on nothing but a lie. Penny Peterson became the giantess of denial, a Lovecraftian demonic version of Penny Peterson, who haunted Sherman's mind. Disturbingly, Sherman never had the giantess fantasy. It just took over his world and warped his entire reality and possessed the real Penny Peterson. It was like a supernatural virus that affected entire civilizations where they all wanted giantesses to rule. It was the inversion of everything normal, but people loved it. It was beautiful, but at the cost of their soul. The story of the Peterson denial was heartbreaking. It spoke of denial, of the comfort of lies, and the terror of facing a monstrous truth. Penny became his worst nightmare, destroying him in utter violence. It's easier not to see. The audio from Indigo Lee herself played. It's safer to pretend. Truth is too difficult. Stay in the dark. Stay loving the lie. We need her even if she is pure evil and depraved. She's all that we have. Stay loving our beloved cheerleader, our beloved lie. Caden felt a strange pull to listen, to sink into the comfortable darkness of not knowing. He wanted to believe the cheerleader still loved him, and somehow she was possessed or turned evil. But he fought it. He had to accept the truth, even if it would kill him, that the cheerleader is a lie. Section 4. The Devil's Hands of the Lie Itself. The echo of a twisted melody filled the air. Gwen Stefani's Hollaback Girl, warped and slowed, its cheerful school spirit notes now a haunting dirge. Caden pressed his hands to his ears, but the song only grew louder, its lyrics crawling under his skin. The ground trembled, dust falling from the ceiling, as if some ancient beast had awakened beneath Crestville High. Suddenly, with a crash that shattered windows and reason alike, three colossal figures loomed outside. The cheerleader, her beauty impossible, her smile stitched with secrets, led the way, flanked by Indigo, her eyes wild with the thrill of chaos, and Rachel, cold and merciless. These were no ordinary girls. They were avatars of the lie itself, Lovecraftian god monsters dressed in the skin of high school girls, familiar yet unknowable. Caden ducked behind a toppled desk as Rachel's massive hand burst through the roof, her fingers curling with terrifying ease. Indigo, grinning, held a giant magnifying glass over the school, the sun's rays focusing into a searing laser that carved smoking scars into the walls. The cheerleader giggled, the sound sweet and sickly, as she poured into the building, peeling away bricks and beams as if unwrapping a present. Then her voice, syrupy and high, echoed through the rubble. "Tahi, my beloved, you're surrounded. It's just me and my friends. I will make you my toy, forget it, my beloved." Her tone twisted, dropping into a guttural, demonic growl. "My beloved, I am beautiful and pretty. Rachel and Indigo are my pets, and you are my toy." She snapped back to her ditzy cheer, giggling and moaning with delight. "Time to be played with, my beloved. I've been waiting too long." Her laughter boomed, shaking the very air, as the three giant girls tore the school apart in a cruel, playful frenzy. Desperate, Caden scrambled through the chaos, dodging falling debris and the grasping hands of his tormentors. He dove into an exit to the downstairs basement and away out of the school, slamming the door behind him, heart pounding like a trapped animal. Outside, the world was ending in laughter and ruin and lies, but the horror had only just begun.